Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be going over lesson 10.9, figures on the coordinate plane. Now in case some of you are wondering or some of you missed it, we did skip lesson 10.8. We did not go over that lesson. That's just not a necessity at this point. So we're covering what we need to right now. So lesson 10.9, this is figures on the coordinate plane. So it tells us that the world's largest book is a collection of photographs from Asia. It goes on to tell us that it's a rectangular shape of an open book on a coordinate plane. So notice then they also give us the points. So they give us these ordered pairs that we need to plot. Alright, so right here we're going to plot the vertices and find the dimensions of the triangle. So complete the triangle, or I'm sorry, not a triangle, a rectangle. So complete the rectangle on the coordinate plane. So first off, we're going to plot and label C at 2, 8. Notice they've already plotted B and A. So we're going to be plotting C and D. So C is going to be at 2 and 8. So that's going to be right here. And then I'm going to label it C. So just like they labeled B and they labeled A, we're labeling these. So then we're going to do D, and it's going to be at 9 and 8. Okay. 9 and 8. Alright, and I need to label that D. So then it wants us to connect our points. Let me grab a protractor here to use to help me keep my line straight. Of course, this should be easy because it's already on a line. Alright, so let's turn it back around. So this is what we've got. So that takes care of step 1, where we have graphed or plotted the points and we've labeled them. Now the next step, we've got to find the length of the rectangle. So first we're going to find the distance between A and B. The y coordinates are the same, so that means that the points lie on a horizontal line. So right here, I'm going to have trouble writing it. I'll try to write it small enough. So this is a horizontal line. So think of a horizontal line passing through A and B as a number line. So this kind of goes back to what we did with absolute value earlier in the year. So the horizontal distance from A to 0 would be the absolute value of 9. So that would be 9 feet. And then the horizontal distance from B from 0 is the absolute value of 2, so 2 feet. So remember, when they're in the same quadrant, we subtract those absolute values. Now you could have just gone through here and said, okay, 9 minus 2 is 7. So the distance here is 7. That also tells me that the distance from C to D would also be 7. Alright, so now we need to do our distances from points C and B. So find the distance. So these are going to lie on a vertical line. So again, we're going to find the absolute value. Since they're on the vertical, we're going to look at the absolute value of the y's. So the absolute value of 8 is 8, and the absolute value of 3 is 3. They're in the same quadrant, so again, let me zoom out just a bit. So again, we're going to subtract. 8 minus 3 is 5. And if you go through here and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you see that that's 5 also. Alright, so when we talk about dimensions, you just take like the length and the width. So for the dimensions of this, we'd start with the length, so that would be 7 feet times the width, which is 5 feet. So we'd say this is a 7 by 5 foot rectangle. Alright, so on the next page it tells us that we can use properties of quadrilaterals to help us find the unknown vertices. The properties can also help you graph quadrilaterals on the coordinate plane. So they give us 3 vertices of parallelogram PQRS. So they give us the P, the Q, and the R. And we need to find what the coordinates of S would be. So the first thing we're going to do is plot the points on the coordinate plane. So we're going to plot P, and that's at 4 and 2. And I'm going to label it P. Then I've got Q at 3, -3. And R is -3, -3. Alright, then we're going to go to step 2. The opposite sides of a parallelogram are parallel. Opposite sides are parallel. So that means my line, see how this runs straight? It's going to be somewhere on this line with 2. Alright, it tells me that they have the same length. So that's part of what we know about parallelograms. So since the length of RQ, if we take the length here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the length is 6 units. That means that the length of this one would also have to be 6. So if I go backward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to put a little dot there. That's where I should be. So now I'm going to go back and trace my line. So the length of side SP also has to be 6 units. So that's what I just graphed there. Alright, so moving on to step 3. We're going to start at point P, which we already did this, and move 6 units to the left. I already did this part. And that's where, right here, is where I'm putting S. Now it wants us to continue to draw the parallelogram. So all I've got to do is I'm going to use anything flat that'll help me make a line. So I'm using this protractor. You could use a ruler, the edge of your notebook, almost anything as long as it's straight, so that I can complete my parallelogram. And now I've just got to give the ordered pair for S. So notice we are at -2 per X and 2 per Y. So it would be -2, 2 is our missing point. Alright, so looking at this next page, the vertices of triangle ABC are A, -1, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. -1, 3. That's A. Then B is -4, -2. And C is 2, -2. Alright, so we've got to graph the triangle and find the length. So I'm going to go ahead and connect my dots to make my triangle. Alright, so the horizontal distance from B to C. So if I'm doing B to C, notice that for B and C, the Y values were the same, so we're finding the absolute values of -4 and 2. So the absolute value of -4 is 4. The absolute value of 2 is 2. So notice this time, though, these points, B and C, are in different quadrants. So that means we would add our absolute values to get 6. So just to check that, if you were to go across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you still get 6. So it's a distance of 6 units. Alright, number 2. We have to find the unknown vertex. So we have, this is rectangle JKLM. JKLM. So remember with a rectangle that it has 2 sets of parallel lines. So notice here J is at 8 and K is at 1. So 8 minus 1 is 7, right? And notice the distance here is 2. So if I just start here and go back 2 and plot this, this would be where M would be. And I'm going to go ahead and connect the dots. You wouldn't necessarily have to, but I like being able to see the shape. And some of you would like that also. Alright, so for our coordinates for M, so the X value would be 3, because it starts at 3, and the Y value would be 8. Alright, number 3. So again, we have a rectangle. It's still named JKLM again. So notice right here that the distance between K and L is 2. So let's start at M and go up 2. And that gives me the missing letter this time is J. So for J, this would be my X is -2 and my Y is 1. Alright, number 4. Alright, we've got to give the coordinates for the unknown again. So it's a rectangle again. So we know that this side down here would have to be parallel to this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this would be, let's see, we've got P, Q, R, so this has to be S. Okay, so my ordered pair here would be 8 for X and 2 for Y. Number 5, the vertices of pentagon PQRST, or P is 9, 7, so I'm going to plot it, go over to 9, up to 7, okay, right there. So I'm going to label this P. Then I have Q is at 9, 3. R is at 3, 3. S is at 3, 7. And T is at 6, 9. So then I'm going to go ahead and connect my dots to make my pentagon. Alright, so it wants to know what's the length of PQ. So what's the length right here? Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would be 4 units. It doesn't tell us if it's inches, miles, feet, yards. So we go with 4 units. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the lesson on graphing figures on the coordinate plane. This also wraps up chapter 10. So once you finish this lesson, you are done with chapter 10. Have a good week.